camping in the backcountry in Quebec, pretty much all alone for what we thought. We heard shuffling outside of the tent one night, but wrote it off as a possum or raccoon. Woke up in the morning with scattered cigarette butts all around the front of the tent, as if someone stood there all night, keeping an eye on us. Nothing happened after that, except some spectacular storms and bear sightings. In Philadelphia, there is actually a massive wooded area that runs right through the city, called Pennyback Park. Believe me when I say that this park is huge. For being in the city, you can easily set up a tent and have a campfire and not be detected. It's so large that the city actually allows hunters to come in to control the deer population. Now, I like to camp out and be in the outdoors a lot, but sometimes I don't have the time to actually make it out to a nearby state park to do so. So sometimes I just do a quick overnight camp in Pennyback Park. Anyway, one day last summer, I went out and set up camp, and everything was uneventful until later that night. As I was eating my dinner, I started hearing a man and a woman talking. Then they started arguing. They weren't more than 100 yards away on the main hiking trail, so I could hear them pretty good. They were arguing for a good couple of minutes, and all of a sudden, I started to hear the woman screaming for help. I then heard the man yelling at her to calm down. And after that, I didn't hear anything more. So at that point, I just written it off as some junkies arguing or something. The next day, I'm awoken pretty early by the sounds of police and news helicopters flying overhead. I also could see police officers and onlookers in the distance. I was in a pretty well-wooded area, so they couldn't see me. I still don't know what happened at that moment, so I just packed up my stuff and got out of there. When I got home, I checked online to see what was going on, and it turned out that a woman was found dead. She was apparently strangled to death, and later on it was found that her husband had murdered her. To this day, I regret not being able to do anything, but I really don't know what I could have done. Maybe if I just yelled to leave her alone, she might still be alive. It all just happened so fast. I did contact the police and told them what I heard, but they said that he already confessed at that point, and that made my account wouldn't make any difference. Here's the link to the news article story about it. The person who posted this story has deleted their account. I have had a lot of creepy experiences, but one time I was hiking with a friend and saw something weird in a tree. It looked like an eyeball surrounded by orange flesh. It made me feel really weird, and I couldn't stop staring at it and trying to focus on what it was. I hear my friend shout my name, and I feel her grab my arm. We'd been hiking on a tall ridge, and I had almost walked right off the trail and tumbled down the side of the mountain. Of course, I look back and the orange thing had vanished. I was camping with a friend at a campground just outside Portland. So well traveled, fairly urban, lots of RVs. It was raining, and we were both in my tent dozing off. We heard, I kid you not, a loud animal scream very close by. I'm an ecologist and know all of the typical campground animal noises, and this was not something I could identify at all. It sounded like it came from something pretty big, but it wasn't a coyote, or a raccoon, or anything. My closest guess is maybe a cougar, but I wouldn't expect them so close to people in an urban campground. And the sound was not right. My friend heard it too, and we just waited in silence. A few minutes later, another screamed back from across the lake. The next morning we got up. Every dog in the campsite was totally terrified. We saw a few that had leashed outside and were still hiding under RVs. To this day, I maintain it was either a Bigfoot or a massive cougar. I was camping in a valley by myself, with no cell service. I stayed late on a trail and ran into a nice local dude as it was getting dark. He showed me a local camping spot close to the road and the river, but camouflaged. I had a fire, drank beer, and listened to my friend's comedy podcast. I was loud and visible. Because it was dark already, I decided to sleep in the back of my truck under the topper next to all of my gear, as opposed to setting up my tent. The next morning, I made a fire, cracked a beer, and started making breakfast. Then, I noticed that there is a man at the edge of my camp. He comes closer, but never looks directly at me. This dude looks homeless, has a long, ratty beard, and has at least 100 plastic grocery bags tied all over his clothes. I comment about how nice the day is. No response from him. I offer him breakfast. Nothing. He sort of paces around the perimeter of the camp. I offer him a beer, but he just turns around. The dude is just standing there, back to me, wandering around. I'm realizing that there isn't going to be any good happenings. I had my bear spray and buck knife super close. I gave him an ultimatum. You are either going to leave or acknowledge me. Leave immediately. He ignores me. I grab the bear mace and walk a few steps towards him. He sulked away, and I threw my stuff in my truck and left that place right quick. I wonder if he had watched me during the night, and I thank my laziness for staying in my truck instead of a tent.